going on, Wolfpack Nation? Thank you so much for tuning in with us here today. We are so excited today to be having one of our, at least for me, a bucket list guest for sure, and Coach Lindsay Edmonds, former NC State assistant coach and now the head coach over at Rice University. And so obviously has, flourished so far, starting off at her tenure with Rice University. But we're so excited to have her. So thank you so much, Coach. Really appreciate your time with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk all things Wolfpack Nation and Rice University.
Absolutely. Well, again, we'll first start off with obviously the Rice side, because I think that's the biggest thing for sure. And I think for any coach, one of the most exciting times I know is when you really get that first opportunity to really run your own show, run your own program, and obviously I know that you could probably say you were definitely lucky or spoiled, to be learning, at least under Wes Moore, and I'm sure, through previous coaches in the previous time. So, so let me ask you first, I'm sure the biggest question I'm sure pretty much every single State fan, including myself, definitely wants to know is, what's that transition like? I know that it's I'm sure it's an exciting time, but probably a nerve-wracking time a little bit as well, so what's that transition been like? And what would you say has been one of the most biggest surprises so far, through that transition of becoming a head coach?
Yeah, I mean, this was it was an awesome, amazing opportunity, but I also loved where I was at, right? So it was a really hard decision. Rice just checked a lot of boxes for my family and I. But once I took the job, it became a whirlwind of things. And the whirlwind has not really stopped. It's just changed. So the first whirlwind was getting to know my new players at Rice. And then my whirlwind became about hiring my staff. And then the whirlwind was moving our family of 5 across the country from North Carolina to Texas. And then July recruiting, and then the season. So the whirlwind just kept changing. And I thought I had an idea of what Coach Moore did, but until you're in this seat, until you're in that chair, you really don't understand the magnitude of how many people need you and how many decisions a day you have to make. I think the one thing that was the most surprising to me was I thought the cupboard was going to be really, really full when I got here and returned 4 of the 5 starters. Unfortunately, I lost 3 of those 4 returning starters to the transfer portal and tried really hard to get them all to stay, right? And so I took that extremely personal, that they didn't want to stay. They weren't excited about me. They didn't want to play for me. I think you guys probably know this transfer portal thing is out of control and it's really not personal. But it took me a while to realize that, because of the person I am, the big heart that I have, the way that I love my players. Even in that, just meeting them, I wanted them to stay. I wanted them to be there. So that was the biggest surprise for me, was like, oh man, like how do we navigate through this now that I've lost 3 and it's so late? How do I get more players in here at this high academic institution with the constraints that they have as far as who they allow in? So that was the biggest surprise for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and we'll definitely talk more about the Rice side, but you definitely bring up a big topic for sure. I definitely wanted to get your kind of talk a little bit more about, because one of the things I definitely think when it comes to the transfer portal is that you've really seen a lot recently that the word loyalty is not really valued as much now as it used to be, and you see that throughout pretty much all sports right now, really. Like, like, for example, like one story I was hearing about earlier, which is not basketball, but it's football, is Ray Lewis, and how, he talked about how he was courted by every team and you name it, but that he said that he made a vow that when he got drafted, that wherever he goes, he's staying there, and he did, and he's a lifelong Raven, and so like, same thing with basketball. I feel like is it's more about necessarily what they can do, what the transfer portal can do for you, rather than what you can do for the school. And so it's an unfortunate thing, but obviously I have a feeling with your reaction that you're kind of on one side of the fence versus the other. So so do you see anything positive at all necessarily with the transfer portal? I'm just like seeing like if you're like fully on that side of the statement, really, when it comes to the transfer portal.
So my time at NC State, we were really fortunate. We did not lose our best players. We kept them. The culture was so good. We kept them. We unfortunately lost a few players that didn't see the playing time that they wanted. And you can understand and appreciate them wanting to play more, or them seeing the writing on the wall that they probably weren't going to play much more the
Absolutely.
following year. At NC State, we benefited a tremendous amount. Right before I left, we lock in Diamond Johnson, we lock in Madison Hayes. So I
Yeah.
see the benefit from that side for sure. And then when I come to my level here at Rice, when people have stats, they can automatically think I'm going to go higher than here, right? And the P5s are going to call on the mid majors or the group of five schools that now all of a sudden have these great stats, and they'll take them. I'm a little worried that where I'm at now, I'm going to become the JUCOs of the world. Like, go and get your experience, go get your stats. I'll call you in 2 years, but I'm not going to call you out of high school. So
Yep.
that's a little bit of my fear of where I'm at versus how we benefited from it at NC State.
So
Absolutely.
I have a question, kind of a follow up on that. Do you, and you got to be careful with your words, obviously, but do you feel like there's just so much tampering involved, and like, these players, like you're saying, it's like, you're not good your senior high school year, but you're good your sophomore college year, and then that you then have to re-recruit your own kids, and it's always like, in today's world where everyone's propping these kids up, and rightfully so for a lot of them. But how difficult is that balancing and managing of that?
Yeah, a few years ago, I would have always said, like, man, I don't know how the Kentucky men basketball, the Duke men basketball, the Carolina men basketball, like, I wouldn't know or Kansas, how did those programs operate with the one and dones? Like, how do you manage
Yeah.
your roster? But now, unfortunately, that's where our game is getting to. And I saw a tweet that said, college coaches are now just AAU programs with a budget. And I mean, that is
Wow.
so crazy to think. But it hit it like
That's interesting.
right on. Like, every year, we've got to make sure our roster is going to be the same. We got to re-recruit our kids. We got to make sure that they stay. And then the ones that leave, now we got to go hop and find some others and get them to, come in. So I'm really fortunate this year. I only had 10 players on roster, but only had 10 players on roster, and one graduated and the other 9 are staying. So I'm really fortunate. I'm really excited. I'm really happy.
Hmm.
I hope we can continue down that path of the culture being so good. And again, the wins hopefully coming more and more. This is where they want to be. This is where they want to stay. But it is hard. I mean, that you look around at a lot of different rosters across the country, you see rosters with 4 people on this one, or 6 people on this one, or only 2 on this one, and that is not something that any coach thinks that in the springtime they're going to be dealing with.
Hmm. Absolutely. And because and talking a little bit too, about this season that you had with Rice. So one of the things that really stood out to me was it definitely seemed like that as the season progressed, the team got better and better. Like, I think the last 6 games of the regular season, I think Rice won 5 of them, and the only one they lost was, I think, in double. I'm sorry, you guys lost wasn't overtime, double overtime actually.
Mm-hmm.
So and then obviously you won the
Mm-hmm.
first game of the Conference USA tournament, which was awesome. So I mean, first of all, I mean, obviously got to give hats off to you. I mean, it just, at least from what it seems like, obviously without actually watching the games, I mean, it definitely just shows right there from looking at schedules. Definitely hats off to you for sure. For what you did so far, but I mean, kind of taking a look back at these, I mean, did you kind of get that same sense as well? And then, I mean, did you feel like you kind of adjusted things? Like, was there certain things that you adjusted during the season that you maybe can kind of say that that's maybe what helped us get to that point?
For sure. Yeah, I think we started out non-conference. We were okay, up a little up and down, and then we hit conference, and we started conference 0-5, and we reached a point where it was like, you know what? Like, everybody take tomorrow off. I don't even know what to say at this point. I haven't lost 5 straight games in probably 14 years. So I was like, I don't even know what to say to you guys. So everybody take tomorrow off. Don't come into the gym. Don't come into the office. Walk away. When we come back on Tuesday, I need everybody to be ready to, like, win the day. And we're going to take on this philosophy of win the day, whether it's practice, whether it's strength and conditioning, whether it's scouting report, whether it's shoot around, whatever it is, we're going to find a way. Forget about winning games. Like, let's find some small wins that we can have. And we started that idea, that motto, And it really kind of took off. And actually, we won last 7 out of our last 9 games. So we really did. We figured it out. And like you mentioned, one was a double overtime loss on the road. So again, we really just kind of, I think, over the course of the year, the players got more experience. Again, I lost in the entire starting lineup from the year before. So the players that I had on my current roster, they had no experience playing in those close games. They had no experience executing down the stretch. I myself had no experience calling a timeout. I gave Coach more suggestions in timeouts, but it was never like, when do I call a timeout and what exactly do we run, right? So I think over the course of the year, I got better, we got better, and we figured it out along the way, and really just kind of hit our stride late February into March, and really pleased with the way we finished off the season.
Absolutely.
Well, I was going to think about that because you mentioned that adjustment and how that's been a learning curve for you. And it seemed like you obviously did well, because I even saw that there's a tweet that I put out how you won head coach of the year for Rice. I mean, I feel like when people kind of compliment me for things, I kind of like, okay, like that's not that big of a deal, but that's an accomplishment for a very good athletic university. Can you talk about that a little bit? I mean, you obviously are doing something right there.
Yeah.
So.
Especially your first year.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was pretty awesome. I wasn't expecting it. I mean, we, like you said, great university. A lot of female sports are doing really well. I mean, we had a volleyball team that goes to the NCAA tournament, wins their first round game. Women's soccer is great. Women's tennis is great. Women's track and field is great. So there's a lot of great women's programs over there. And I was shocked and not anticipating it and not sure that I deserve it in that room.
Sure.
But I am very proud of the honor, like I said at our banquet, and I said in my tweet, definitely a staff award, definitely a team award. Everyone bought in, everyone trusted me, everyone believed in the vision. And even when things weren't going the right way, they showed up every single day, ready to fight and ready to figure it out. And even the games that we lost, every coach came down the line and was like, man, your kids fight for you. They are tough, and something that I'm really proud of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need. Offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out. You mentioned too, talking about women's sports. So one of the things I wanted to bring up with you, which was because I'm sure I don't know if you know this, Coach, but my wife she went to the University of South Carolina, so obviously she is a big Gamecock fan, and then some of my money's going to USC, so therefore I'm partially a USC fan as well. So by the factor of that's where my money's going. But so obviously we watched the national championship, and one of the things I loved was after the championship game, Dawn Staley's interview, which I'm sure you've probably have seen. But I mean, I loved first of all, obviously how she said that, that there's no doubt the sport of women's basketball is growing, but also talking about how like she even basically called out ESPN while on ESPN saying, listen, you guys need competition. Like, we need other networks that are picking them up and basically, giving ESPN some healthy competition here. And so, I wanted to kind of ask you what was your general thoughts on that interview, which I think, spoke thousands of words across the country, but also too, I truly do think that one of the things I love right now is that, that the sport of women's basketball is getting more competitive. Like, one of the things that I was saying, like 5 years ago, if you were to fill out an NCAA women's basketball tournament bracket, it was going to be UConn, and then who was going to lose to UConn pretty much. That was pretty much going to be what was going to happen. But now, NC State's getting up there. Stanford's, won a national championship last year. Baylor, South Carolina, you name it. Like even the ACC is getting more competitive. So, which I think is great for the sport. So, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of, again, talk a little bit about kind of what your thoughts were on Dawn Staley's interview. I'm curious your thoughts, and then just kind of, the thoughts of the growth of women's basketball.
Yeah. Dawn Staley's amazing. She's great for our game. Love that she is a female head coach that is being successful, right? And I think that's great for other women looking up to her, saying, I can be there too, right? So yeah, she has a great platform and the ability to use her voice for comments like that. And so I think that's great for our game. People are going to listen to Dawn Staley, right? I mean, because again, the success that she's had. So any chance that successful coaches have an opportunity to grow our game, I'm all for it. I think over the course of this year, seeing tweets about how the views were up for the NCAA tournament all year long. I mean, that was exciting. There was more parity in our game this year. There were upsets. There were fun games to watch. Everybody said like, oh, you guys host. So like whenever you host, there's never any upsets. And that we proved that to be wrong. Not true this year, right? So there was a lot of upsets. That was exciting. I think, again, if you go back to the NC State and the UConn game, if there was anybody that watched that game that was thinking like, I don't know if I want to be a women's basketball fan or not, after you watch that game, there's no way you could walk away from it saying that sport's not good. That game's not good. I don't want to watch it. Like, that was unbelievable for our game. One of the best games of the tournament. It's unfortunate it was at the Elite Eight and not in the Final Four, but I love the way our game is growing, and I think it will just continue on this path. So I like it. I like not having just filling out UConn to be the winners every year. They've been great, and it's been amazing what Gino has done. But I'm excited to see change in who's winning those national championships.
Unless it's NC State or Rice, right?
Yes.
I'm joking.
Fill that out all the way.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding. No, I'm going to get back to Rice here, and I'm curious if you have like an elevator speech for what excites you about Rice, and what is that? I mean, like it's to me, I see a lot of potential at going to the university. I think there's a lot there to offer. It's in the Houston area. Really great school. So what do you kind of pitch to your recruits?
Yeah. So for my family and I, it was a very diverse city. We're a biracial family. So going somewhere with diversity was really important for us. And I think being able to sell diversity in recruiting is important as well. So that was one thing. The city of Houston has a ton of things to do, a lot of great restaurants, all the pro teams that you could ever want to go to. So that's pretty awesome. The program has been successful. I think a lot of times people say, go somewhere that's at the rock bottom of the conference. Like, you can only go up. I also believe there's a reason why sometimes programs aren't successful. It's not always easy to be successful at certain places. So the fact that Rice has been successful, they've won conference championships, they've won regular season championships, they won the WNIT championship before I got there. I was like, is proof. There's proof that you can be successful if it's done the right way. So that's another thing that I've been selling. High academics are important to young ladies and their parents. So I can recruit nationally. Texas should be my home base because there's a lot of great players in Texas, but because Rice's brand is known across the country, I can be on the phone with someone in the state of Washington. I can be on the phone with someone in the state of Maryland or Georgia. So, I mean, my roster right now, I have one from Ohio, one from Pennsylvania, 3 from Oklahoma, 3 from Georgia, a couple from Texas. So they're all over. So again, I think those are some of the major selling factors. I mean, education is great. You're going to be in an elite network once you graduate. That's really going to help you be able to find jobs however you want, however you please. And then the program is successful. You can win here. You can win championships. You can go to the NCAA tournament, and Houston's a great city to live in.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Greg.
Oh, I just kind of wanted to take this a little bit. You mentioned your players, and this was the special story that I wanted to talk to you about. One of your unofficial team members there. I forgot her name just now. Addison.
Addison.
Yeah, for your team impact. I just wanted to just kind of hear how Rice and the women's team got involved with not only Addison but Team Impact, which the organization that she's a part of. So
for sure,
if you could just share that a little bit.
Yeah,
that's great.
So when I first got there, our team was really kind of craving more community service, and they wanted to take part in the community a little bit more, and however we could do that. So we started just doing some digging, started doing some research on some things that we could do. We found out about this program, Team Impact. So what we were going to be paired up with a young lady that was going to be a part of our team for the next 2 years. And this young lady drives an hour and a half into Houston. Houston has a very large medical center right across the street, and very world-renowned surgeons, doctors, everything. So Addison has some health issues, some lower extremity issues that she's battling, she's going through. So she comes in often for doctor's appointments. So it was an easy pair for us. She loves women's basketball. So when she drives in for doctor's appointments, she always comes over and spends some time with us on campus. She's our number one fan. She's at every game. She sits on the bench with us. She comes in the locker room with us. She's posting stuff on Instagram all the time about our girls and our team. She text messages with our girls. So just a really special relationship to allow her to have some fun, have something to look forward to, have some great young ladies to look up to as big sisters while she's going through a hard stretch of her life. So just being there to be, support, love on her, and help push her through all the adversity she's kind of facing right now in her life at such a very young age.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's awesome, and more athletes need to use their platforms for those type of things. You always want to be the positive change, whether it's in your local community, on a national stage. So that's really great, and I'm really proud to hear those kind of stories.
Yes, for sure, it's been awesome. She's loving it.
And so one thing I wanted to kind of talk about here too, as we kind of wrap up this first part here, is so for those who don't know, you were a 4-year starter at App State, and you actually, if I'm not mistaken, still hold the career record for most 3-pointers, if I'm not mistaken, 177.
Yeah, someone texted me and told me that it got broken, but I don't know if that's true or not. But someone did text me recently and told me it was broken. But records are meant to be broken, so that's okay. But I did receive a text message that had been broken, so I probably need to get that off my bio.
Hey,
if it's on the internet, it's definitely true.
Well, you just add in at the time, whatever. At the end of the day, hey, it's still impressive to say the least. So so one thing I wanted to kind of ask about. So, I know all of us NC State fans, when we face Indiana, we know Indiana because first of all, they've I feel like over the last couple of years when we faced them, they've been a tough team to go against. Obviously, Indiana is the team that knocked us out last year in the NCAA tournament, which is a bummer. But, one of the things I love, watching is Ashley Williams and how she's an assistant coach at Indiana now. And one of the things that kind of was going through my head that I wanted to kind of ask you is, so being a former player, you see some head coaches that are former players of that sport. Some, didn't play a sport at all and just loved it and just wanted to be a GA. So from you being a former player, do you feel like that there's an edge, per se, or like a benefit of, like, let's say if I'm like an AD and I was interviewing somebody that was a former player and I was interviewing somebody that wasn't a former player, is there a benefit that you see of one versus the other?
There's great coaches that are coming from both backgrounds out there. I think for me, I would always sell. I was a competitive athlete. I walked in these shoes. I walked and did this journey. I know what the student athletes went through or going through because I went through it myself. So I think, you can sell it that way, as that could give you a little bit of advantage. You're going to say, I'm going to understand what my student athletes are going through day in and day out because I walked that too. And I went through that journey. So you can talk about that. So I think that helps you. But again, there's great coaches that come from both. For me, again, I would just sell. I was a very competitive player. I hated to lose. And I say that all the time now. I hate to lose more than I love to win. And I probably got that a little bit from Westmore as well. So, I think there's definitely a competitive advantage of being able to say that you played the sport, being able to say, about the 6 a.m. wake up calls and strength and conditioning, about, making mile times, or, about making shuttle runs or whatever your conditioning test may be. About the gut wrenching losses, about the exciting overtime wins. Like, you took part in all of those things as well. So it can carry over and allow you to be able to have those experiences as a head coach as well.
Yeah, no, and one other thing too I wanted to ask about as well is obviously basically your coaching career basically started at App State, went to James Madison, went to NC State, and then now you went to Rice. So I wanted to, kind of ask, was it a kind of a question in your head of like, man, like I've spent my pretty much my whole recent time so far on the East Coast, and now I'm heading basically to the south. And so I'm sure it was kind of a culture shock a little bit for you and the family.
For sure. If you would have told me 2 years ago my first head coaching job would have been in Texas, I would have told you were crazy. Like there's no way, right? There's no way. For me, It was very much like I'm going to stay in North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, Tennessee. Like I'm going to be in that area. And I had an opportunity to go for a job that I thought was going to be like a dream job for me because it fell into those parameters. And when I got there, it didn't exactly look the way I thought it was going to look. And my husband and I decided to turn it down. It's like, all right, so we're just back at NC State, and I'm happy and I'm okay with that. I got teamed up in this program called the Next Up program. It was like 30 female assistants that are ready to become head coaches. So I was in this program, this clinic, and I got paired up with a senior level administrator. She was AD at Central Michigan. She had been at Texas for years as like a SWA. And she was telling me, you sound a lot like me. Like you have these parameters. You say, I want it to be this state, or this state. She said, I was the same way. That's why I spent 17 years at Texas. And everybody kept saying, like, why are you not taking an AD job? So she finally opened up her parameters, went to Central Michigan, fell in love with it. And so she was like, I'm just telling you, like, just open your parameters. You never know what could happen. Yeah. And a week later, Rice called me and I was like, okay, God, like, I hear you. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to at least explore. I'm going to at least look at it and see. But still, Texas, whoa, like, I don't know. But then it just ended up checking off a lot of boxes and it felt really right for our family.
Okay. Awesome. I love it. Well, first of all, again, thank you so much again for sharing the time about Rice. But hey, for part 2, Wolfpack Nation, make sure to tune in with us as we're actually be talking some NC State, talking some Final Four, talking this NC State women's run here. So make sure to tune in with us for part 2. But first off, if you haven't already, make sure once again, hit that subscribe button. It's free to do, and make sure you don't miss out whenever we release new NC State content. Give this video a like so that way YouTube will put this video in front of more NC State fans. Also to give us a follow, Tuffy Talk now. But make sure as well to follow Coach Edmonds along. Hey, at the end of the day, once you're Wolfpack family, you're always Wolfpack family, and we got to even support her and all others, as they move about their career, because we all know that Westmore and all of us are very proud of coaches like Coach Edmonds here. So as always, thank you all so much, and as always, go Pack, y'all. See you on part 2.